Hello, how are you today? Welcome to Mind Your Business. I am your hostess, Andah. I'm also a corporate trainer, business coach, and founder of the Fabulous Woman Network. On Mind Your Business, I talk about business, any tips, strategies, and tools that we can use to do business better, especially if we've recently started our businesses. And sometimes I also interview other people so they can share with us. Speaking of interviewing others, today I am interviewing a very lovely woman who has been on this show before. This is her second time. She's actually the first person to be interviewed twice on Mind Your Business. Today we are focusing the discussion on mental health. First, who is she? So I'm going to read her bio. She is Lady Abba Cato Andah. I call her Lady Abba. She has an MBA, MA, LMHC, and she's a Christian psychotherapist, author, and a transformational speaker. So true. She is the owner of Chrysalis Counseling and Coaching, a private counseling practice. Abba calls herself the hope monger because she says, "My heart's cry is to promote mental, emotional, and spiritual health by educating, inspiring, and ultimately elevating people to harness the amazing power of hope in their lives." The constant theme in Abba's life and career has been her concern for the well-being of others and her love for imparting information and new insights to encourage people to live authentic, rewarding, purpose-filled lives. Abba is passionate about mental health and is a director of Health and Wellbeing International, an NGO aimed at mental health education and promotion. She's the author of the book Reflections of a Hope Monger, which is available worldwide on Amazon. And she's also the host of the Hope Mongers podcast, which is available on all the major podcast streaming platforms. Abba is a wife, mother, and mother-in-law. She lives in Florida, USA, with her family. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Lady Abba. Lady Abba, thank you so much for being the first ever guest to return to my video podcast. I mean, you're fabulous. And so it's always a pleasure to sit at your feet. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Wow, I am so honored. And you know that you are my, I don't know, is there a word better than sweetheart? I don't know. So I'm incredibly honored that I am the first one. I have the honor of being the first person to come here for a second time. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. So, I mean, as I said to you, the reason I thought this would be necessary is that over the past couple of weeks, I've heard people, I would greet someone and say, "How are you?" And they will say something like, "Oh, I survived the week." The first time I thought it was funny, and then I glossed over it. And then I heard it again. And then again from different women. And I thought, no, what is happening here? So it was actually a friend who pointed me to the fact that actually a lot is going on with people. People are having different issues. And then I had the privilege to watch the interview that you did in our group and you talked about it. I was like, you know what, Amma, you need to bring back this lady. You need to bring back Lady Abba to share with us on the topic of mental health. And I know that you yourself have an experience with it. So I wanted us to start from that. What made you, what's your story when it comes to mental health, really?
Yes. So before I even go to even dramatic things, let me just piggyback on something you just said, is that people say, "I'm surviving." It's not just a thing they are saying. It's a clinical thing, There's a social scientist in the New York Times a few months ago published an article after doing a huge survey, I guess. And what he's saying is that the dominant word of 2021, right? He's using a term called languishing. Languishing. So we're not thriving, even though people may not be maybe mentally ill in the clinical sense, but with everything that's gone on, many of us are not thriving. We are languishing. So it's this middle area. And what he says is that Don't even think, oh, okay, I'm not, maybe I don't have mental illness. It's just language. No, he says this languishing, watch it, because in a few years, if we don't deal with it, it will become another, even worse, an epidemic of mental illness. What we are meant to do is to thrive, right? Is to thrive. The Bible says we came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. The Bible says, beloved, I wish among all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers.
Yes.
So the point is to thrive. Life life itself brings its challenges, right? Life brings challenges. In the last, at this point, it's August. So it's going on in the last, 18 to 20 months. We've been going through all the issues of life against a backdrop of disease, a pandemic. Every time we think it's gone down, it's raising up again.
Yeah.
Every time you think, okay, I feel like, okay, we're over it, then it morphs into a different variant.
Yeah.
And then we are confused and confounded again. Yeah. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their livelihoods. People have lost their loved ones. People have lost relationships. It's tough. It's tough. So this is, our conversation today is actually very timely. And I hope that somebody listens to this and learns something from it. Yes, I've suffered from issues of mental health. All of us have. To be honest with you, in the same way you have health and then you have illness, right? There can be a time when maybe you are overtired or you just feel like, wow, I'm run down. So you can say, you know what? Maybe I have a cold or I'm run down or whatever. I'm not so healthy today. Right? So it means your health has been compromised. Yeah. It may be different from having a diagnosis, right? Yeah. Of having, asthma or diabetes. So between health and illness, it's a continuum, right? Or from illness to health. You can get less and less healthy. And if you don't watch it and look after yourself, it will develop into a full-blown diagnosable illness. Same with mental health. We use the terms interchangeably, mental health, mental illness. The reality is that it's a continuum. So yes, my most recent bout where I realized that no, my mental health was compromised actually was in July. So I'm talking about at this point, like 2 weeks ago. I lost a dear friend. I lost a close, uncle. In all, people throughout my life that I knew, I think I counted about 6 people in the span of 2 weeks who passed away suddenly. Some from COVID, some from other things. This dear friend of mine who actually passed away, my goodness, it floored me. It floored me. And before I knew what, I recognized that I wasn't as productive at work. I was dragging. I recognized that I had no motivation. I recognized that actually my head was just full. I didn't want to talk. I felt like isolating. So, of course, because I know the symptoms, I'm like, no, something is up. Something is up. And so at the end of the month, I took a week off. And my husband and my daughter and I, we just went to the beach and just disconnected, right? It was a simple week off. We disconnected and we chatted and we just, went to a different environment. That helps. So the truth is that mental illness to mental health, it is a continuum. So what is mental health? Well, somebody can say is the absence, just like they say health. One definition is the absence of illness. But I think health is more than that. Mental health too is a sense of a state of psychological well-being. Okay. So if you're mentally healthy, then you have a sense of psychological well-being. Another definition of mental health that came up with the WHO is that when you are mentally healthy, you can be productive. You can cope with life, the demands. Lady Amma, I can imagine you have an incredibly busy schedule. Right? Perhaps there are times when maybe just because of even just sheer exhaustion, you may find that, Charlie, I'm dragging a little bit. Or it could be some stress, in something you are planning. Yeah. And if you don't watch yourself, you can just find yourself sinking. Yeah. When we have mental health, we can cope with the demands of life, whether it be work or running a business or with marriage or raising a family, or going to school. When we have mental health, we can actually maintain fulfilling relationships. So for me as a mental health counselor, if somebody comes to me and they're just telling me about themselves, right? And their relationships are, we don't have tight, supportive relationships, and one breakup after another, and so on and so on, then it may lead me to think, okay, I wonder what the impact of, having difficult relationships, being disappointed has had on their psyche. When we are mentally healthy, we can adapt to change. When we are mentally healthy, we can cope with stress. Listen, life will bring stress. The last 20 months has been stress excel, right? Just like, listen, have you ever had a time in your life when maybe your hand was sore or something, or maybe your hand was hurting you? If my hand is strong and I put a weight on it, I can hold it well. Exactly. But if, let's say, I hurt my hand, then I realize that maybe the weights I used to do, bench press and whatnot, I can't do it. Yeah. Same thing. When we're not mentally healthy, then the stresses of life can just bring us down. When we are mentally healthy, then we can cope better with life. And so it's important that we all have what I'm going to call a toolbox of mental health strategies, Yeah. So yeah. Now you want something dramatic? Yes. I can give you dramatic. And this was, when was it? Gosh, it's a long time ago. It's over a decade ago. Okay. But I went through something in my personal life. It was intense. It was intense. And my marriage itself was breaking up. And I went into, it was more than a funk. It was a depression. It was hard. My kids were young then. They are grown now, and one is married and one is going to university. They were young then. It took so much effort just to be able to get them going, get them to school. I didn't even realize it. It's interesting. They say dogs, they pick up on your energy. I just remember one day my sister came to visit, and when she even saw how the dog was acting, she just burst into tears because she knew all was not well with me. And I remember one day, again, having a supportive, family, my sister said to me, "You don't even sound like yourself." She goes, "Fight to get yourself back." I'd become so negative. If you said something to me, all you heard was complaints and about woe is me situations. And she said, you've got to fight to get back your best self. I remember my brother one day said to me, "This is not how to win." And he was coming from like a coach point of view. And I realized, what, I need to galvanize it. For me, the road to recovery involved going for counseling, which, interestingly enough, the moment I stepped in front of the counselor, all my goosebumps stood up. And I was like, wow, this is supposed to be me. And it was after that encounter that I decided to change my life around. I quit my job. I went back to school. I became a therapist. But it involved counseling. It involved exercise. It involved, trying to eat healthy. It involved prayer. It involved meditation. It involved worship, a whole lot of worship. It involved watching what I was declaring over my life. It involved dealing with maybe situations and anger. It was a journey. And to be honest with you, none of the things I did then have I stopped doing now. The moment I slack with exercise or eating healthy or reading my Bible or meditating, then you see that I become crabby. So for all, in the same way, we must do these things to maintain our health. See, our mental health is part of it. And what I share with people is that health, we human beings, we are tripartite beings, right? We are body, we are soul, we are spirit, right? And so it's like a three-legged stool. So if one of the legs of a stool is cut or is short, the stool cannot stand. Same thing, our spiritual health, our physical health, our mental health. So oftentimes the things that will boost our mental health are the same things that will boost our physical health. There's a lot of data out there about the importance of healthy nutrition, because healthy nutrition then feeds, helps to boost the brain chemicals that will lead to mental health and take us away from mental illness. Yes, you can take medicines, but isn't it better that your food is your medicine
Exactly.
rather than spending so much money on medicines? So it all works together. This thing. So, let me even go ahead and answer the second question you sent to me. You said to me, what was your second question? You go ahead and ask me.
So
At which point you said,
exactly. So that you chipped that in the first one. At which point you decided to become a mental health practitioner?
sure. So that's when it happened. But your point was, your second, or the way I saw it was, at which point should we be concerned
Oh, so
about
that's
mental health?
exactly. Oh, yes, that's the next one. You're right. Yes.
Now, today, today, not one of us hasn't been impacted by stress, by disappointment, by loss, by fear. The state I live in, Florida, I think it was last Friday, they said there were 27,000 new cases of COVID that day. Then the state people were arguing with them, fighting with the CDC. So, and then they changed it and they said 19. Can you imagine 19,000? This is 18, 20 months after. So yes, this COVID, let's even start there. The impact of that alone, right, has impacted our mental health. Let's start today.
Yeah, thank you. And as you were speaking, you mentioned also that because you were a professional in the second instance that you mentioned, or the first, that in July you noticed that something was wrong. So you mentioned that you could tell the signs, but for lay persons like me and others listening, what are some of the signs that they can use to detect that something is off?
Yes, absolutely. And maybe I shouldn't have said because I'm a professional. The truth is that, professional or not, we should, number one, all be mental health advocates. And number two, we should all know the signs, of mental illness. I feel like I should say this to you before we start.
Okay.
And this is about understanding. So I talked about mental health, right? Now, what I said is that if mental health is not addressed, it can degrade and become mental illness. So what is mental illness? I think that's important to share with people. And then I'll come back to talk about the symptoms. Sure. Mental illness is a wide umbrella of diseases, right? Now, with us, certainly with us as Ghanaians, we have a huge stigma against mental illness. If you were to ask anybody, what do you associate? Certainly for me, with the word mental, you hear, bodamfo, the mad person on the street, clothes disheveled, hair messy, unkempt, just talking about things that don't make sense. That's our association with mental. The reality is that mental illness is a wide umbrella of disorders. Again, mental illness is a disorder of mental health. So it's not the common ones. And there's a lot of them. Include clinical depression, include anxiety, include things like schizophrenia, which is what we are one of the most severe, or the most severe one, right? Schizophrenia, which when you somebody loses touch with reality. And so they see things that are not there. They hear things that are not real. Okay. There's also something called bipolar disorder, where somebody can go, again, it's based on when there's mental illness, the brain chemicals are disrupted. There's actually a clinical disruption of brain chemicals. So bipolar disorder, they can go on a high and then they act erratically. They do risky things. Sometimes they also can see things that aren't there, and typically they disrupt their lives in the course of it. Or they can be very, 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 very depressed and they can't even get out of bed for days on end. It is a tough thing to deal with. And these are amazing people. Yeah. Many of them very high functioning, but they have to live with a mental disorder. I think in Ghana, one of the most prominent is my other sweetheart, Abna Koko. She's trying to figure out her life, but she deals with, bipolar disorder. And and she's not the only one. There's so many of us, There's also things like alcohol abuse, drug abuse. That's a mental disorder. in children, you may hear about things like ADHD. Oh, my child has ADHD. That's a mental disorder. You know, you may hear about somebody who has autism. That's a mental disorder, right? So, or mental retardation, you know, being intellectually, you know, compromised. That's a mental disorder as well. So that's just a few of what is a wide umbrella. And actually, the WHO has said this, and I have to say this too, because we need to stop the stigma. In the course of our lifetimes, okay, 1 in 4 of us have been impacted by a mental disorder. 1 in 4 of us. That means if you haven't experienced it yourself, you have somebody close to you, a spouse or a child or a sibling or a parent who's experienced it. So let's stop stigmatizing it. Let's start talking about it. You know, when we hide things, they become shameful.
Yeah.
When we share our experiences, as we are doing, we educate and we empower people to bring about change in their personal lives, in their lives, you know, generally. You know, because listen, and I'm sure you've experienced it too, times when, wow, it's so discouraging, or I'm so tired.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to mind, it's a way of minding your business, right? To know that, you know what, I need to take the afternoon off. Or I need to just give myself an extra couple of hours, let my body rest. Those are all things that, you know, yes, they will help our physical health, but they also help our mental health. It's important.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, depression is the most common of mental disorders. It is widespread. It is widespread. 80% of people who have some mental disorder also have depression. All right. So what are the symptoms? Listen, we all feel sad. We all go through seasons in our lives where we are sad, or we may wake up today and feel depressed. I think that we tend to use it very casually.
Loosely.
But when it comes to very loosely, when it comes to clinical depression, here are some symptoms. All right. So it is that you feel sad or you feel depressed. What I find is what I call a loss of vitality. When you see somebody, it's like, you used to like to dress up and do your things, a loss of vitality. That's a symptom. All right. Another one is changes to how you used to be. Now now you can't sleep, or you have problems falling asleep or staying asleep, or you're sleeping too much. A change in your sleep patterns. You know, for a while now you can't eat. You know, or you're eating too much. A change in your eating patterns. That's a sign. Another one is isolating. Sometimes people go through things, and I think that's something that I think as Ghanaians we do too, because we are people who keep our stories close to our hearts. All of a sudden, somebody, you know, isn't, you know, you can't get through to them. You can't get in touch with them. That's why it's important to check up on people. Check up on people. You have to create a culture of checking. Ask them, how are you doing? How are you doing? You know, so somebody is isolating. That's a sign. All right. So yes, so there's about 9 different symptoms, including, but watch out for changes. Another thing is you find that you don't even have the energy put, your energy is gone down. You don't have the energy put to make yourself look nice. You know, so then you are walking around. That's why sometimes even saying, you know, I'm going to make an effort today, I'm going to put on lipstick, right? It will make you feel better. You know, because you're almost trying to fight against that thing that's bringing you down. So listen, one of my mental health tips, I like my lashes, I like my lipstick, I do it, I feel good. It's not my only mental health tip, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's happened to me where I've gone through and I'm like, wow, you know, somebody even to get up and bathe in the morning is a problem. So am I saying that anybody who's experienced something like this, one of these things for one day, has clinical depression? No. There's about 9 different symptoms. And if you find that you're experiencing 5 of them consistently, daily, every day, almost every day, right? For over the diagnostic manual says 2 weeks. But even if you find 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you've been like this, then you know what? You need to start to do things to allow yourself to get healthy.
Yes.
Right? Go ahead.
Yes, so I was actually coming to that. So what are some of the things that you should do then? This is for you, the person who has realized that something is off. What are some of the things to do?
Absolutely. Actually, one important symptom I left out as well is when there's depression, then there's thoughts of suicide. So depression is a major risk factor for suicide. So if you find that you are feeling these things, I think the first thing to do is don't carry the burden yourself. Talk to somebody you trust. Talk to somebody wise who you trust. Be it a family member, be it a dear friend, be it a church member who won't take your situation and gossip about you. Be it a pastor, and also it could be talk to your doctor or get, make an appointment and see a counselor. And that's why I think it's important that we all understand the symptoms of declining mental health. We all understand the symptoms of depression so we can help each other. I think it's in Zimbabwe, maybe about 10 years ago, they don't have, as many mental health professionals. So they started something called Friendship Bench, where they trained older women in the community, on something called solution-focused counseling. And so in these little villages, if anybody had a problem, they could, they'd have these benches and go sit there and talk to a wise woman. And then the one had been trained with a few questions to help you resolve your problem, but also to even understand, no, you know what, sister, you used to look good, but I can see that you something is up. Now, pointing it out to somebody, it doesn't make them worse, and it just might jolt them into, saying, you know what, yes, let me look at myself. In my case, in the story I told, my sister told me, you don't even sound like yourself. Listen, do you hear yourself? And that made me sit back and look in the mirror and say, wow, she's right. Something is not good with me. Something is not good with me. All right. Whatever it is, do not keep it to yourself. Whatever it is, do not keep it to yourself and be weighed down. Speak to somebody. Speak to somebody you trust. Yes, having a support system is a major thing to keep us mentally healthy. And that's why I love, what you do with your platforms, Fabulous Women in Business. It's about business. It's also about supporting each other. It's awesome. It's awesome. So those are just some things, some signs. There's 9. And listen, if you don't remember anybody listening, you don't remember all the things I've said, the good news is that there is so much information online. Just Google symptoms of depression. There's so much. I actually feel like I keep saying I'm a very passionate mental health advocate, and we all should be, because we are all in this boat in this sea of a pandemic that's threatening to sink us. And if everybody listening makes the point to once a week, just have your mental health day. It doesn't matter what your business is. You don't have to even create it all. Just Google and go into images or follow somebody on social media. If every day you pick maybe Mental Health Wednesday and just post something about mental health, right? We number one, will be flooding, the internet with information that somebody just might save somebody's life. Anything, signs of depression, how we should self-care, maybe how to set boundaries. All of these are so many different ways you can catch somebody's attention and cause them to maybe examine themselves. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And sometimes, so what you've explained how we can detect the signs. Sometimes you may have a friend or say a spouse, someone in your life, them, like your sister knew you and was able to point to it. And then you find the person, you say, oh, how are you? I'm fine. How is everything okay? I'm fine. You use whichever language to try. You can see that something is wrong, but they are unwilling to talk about it. What do we do in such a situation?
Indeed. So you can't force somebody. Let me just say that on the outset. You
Yeah.
can't force somebody. What I will say is that one thing when you were talking, I thought about was how about you ask an open ended question? If you say, "Are you fine?" they can say yes,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you say, "Hey, I've noticed that you haven't been yourself. What is wrong?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's an open ended question.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, somebody may still try and circumvent and say, "I'm fine."
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
at least you can try that way, you know. I think that if somebody truly is cut off and doesn't want to deal with you, one thing you can do is just let them know, I've noticed it. I'm here for you whenever you're ready to talk. Another thing you can do is maybe send the person symptoms of depression
Mm.
and tell them you are there for them. So yes, some people may find it irritating and may come back at you.
Yes.
As long as you're not forcing yourself on somebody in that way, I still think there's a benefit there, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Now, another thing you can do is encourage somebody. I just sent you a document that I have an NGO with a friend of mine, and she actually compiled a list of all the mental health facilities in Ghana that have provide all the health facilities in Ghana that provide mental health services.
Mm.
So please share it. Maybe you can. So if you know somebody, send it to them.
Yeah.
You know, and say, hey, you know what? If you ever feel like you want to talk or do something about it, here's is the stuff. Or
Yeah.
if they won't talk to you, encourage them to talk to somebody else. But the important thing is to talk. In fact, the WHO in I think 2017 had a whole campaign about mental health. It was called Let's Talk.
Let's.
Let's Talk.
Mm.
Actually, emotions, they are in us. And so often we tend to suppress them and beat them down. But when you talk about it, you almost, in a sense, separate yourself from it. You're able to look at it a little bit more objectively. And it's a major step. Identifying what's going on with you is like half the battle.
Mm. Mm.
Identifying what's going on is like half the battle, you know. And again, in my story, I honestly didn't realize what was going on with me. But my sister saying something to me, and to be honest with you, if I'm honest, in that initial moment she said you don't sound like yourself, I felt offended. I was like, what? You're my little sister. How in my head, I didn't say it to her though. How dare you
Yeah.
say this to me? But honestly, it caused me, well, not in that conversation, to look at myself and say, you know what? She's right. I'm not myself. I need to do something, you know. So the important thing is we aim to thrive, not languish, not be mentally ill. Our aim is to thrive because Jesus came that we may have life and have it more abundantly.
Yeah.
Abundantly,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. Some of the women who reach out to me, some of them I don't even know, but asking for support and all, and then I would recommend some of the professionals within our network. They would come back and say, "Oh, she's expensive, or I can't afford," and all. Is there? I mean, you've shared a few tips for helping ourselves, but when we actually need to seek professional help, and maybe the money is a bit above our budget, literally because we don't have, not because we have other important things, but we just don't have. How do we, what do you have to say to us? How do we go about this?
Yeah. So it's not easy, not just in Ghana, but truly internationally. Countries are just catching up in terms of providing adequate mental health services. A lot of people cannot afford it, or there's a lack of them, and so on. When it comes to affordability, it's a tough one in Ghana. All I can say is that in the same way we find ways of treating somebody who is ill physically, let's support each other with the treatment of somebody who is ill mentally. Honestly, I think that the bigger thing is, do we understand how important and central mental health is to our well-being? And I think that honestly, there's people who have told me in the past, not just Ghanaians, people here, I can't afford it. But when you look at their shoe and their outfits, true.
And their phone.
Right. So let's see it as an investment in ourselves. Invest in yourself. Because the truth is that Man, you are a soul, right? Living in a body. You have a spirit, you are a soul, you have a spirit, you live in a body. And truly, for you to be able to accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish, you must be healthy in that soul, so you can communicate with, the Spirit of God, and also be healthy in the body. And here's the thing too. Our mental health, I should have said this earlier, compromises our physical health.
Yeah.
There's studies out there that show how many illnesses, right, are really born because of mental situations. There was a study, anxiety-related illnesses is what it's called.
Anxiety.
So the body keeps the score. The body keeps the score. There's an amazing woman. Her name is Reese Karen. Maybe I should have you have her sometime. And I wish Ghanaians would, and she's Ghanaian too.
Oh.
I wish Ghanaians would invest in themselves through her program. She'll talk about generational trauma. So she has a program where she go into your, because as therapists, she's a therapist like me. As therapists, we understand that what we go through, sometimes it's been seen 3 or 4 generations. And so she'll actually go through mother generational trauma, father generational trauma, different things you're going through, teach you how to meditate, dialogue with God, breathe, because it's all connected. What you are feeling in your body in terms of, dis-ease, right, honestly originated from the state of your mental, from your mental health.
Yeah.
It's all linked.
Yeah. When you said the word breathe, I just remembered an experience I had last night. So I would like to say I had a fear of flying, but I think it's still there. So last night I was on a small plane and I found myself beginning to panic again. And I just said, breathe, just remember to breathe. So I pulled down my mask and I just was breathing because I realized I was going off and I was about to do, I don't know what. So this thing, even knowing that we should breathe and how to, it really helps. So yeah, thank you.
And even understanding the power of learning how to breathe and the power it has to heal. That's a whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
I'll connect you to her.
Absolutely.
I will. And she's looking to bring her message to masses of women. So yeah.
It will be a pleasure too. And if she's watching this, hey lady, I need you on my seat. Thank you so much, Lady Abba. You are amazing. And I know I've asked you these questions before, but I'm going to ask them again. My 3 questions that I ask you at the end of the interview. Oh, but actually, before we get into that, please let's hear, how is it going with the reflections of the Hookmonger, the sales and the reach? How is it going?
It's going well. As you know, I had a fantastic business coach who saw me through just awesome. So I have, I was able to build up my social media presence. I think in July you'll tell me off, but I did take some time off. So
yes, you mentioned.
It was a mental health break. But my podcast is back on track. It's doing well. I get invitations to speak. I'm working on something which I'm excited to announce, in about a month. But it's something about finding your purpose. It's a conversations about finding your purpose. And I think that's also central to our well-being. So, and of course, I as the, things are getting back to normal, I get invitations to speak, invitations to talk about my book orders, bulk orders. It's really been good.
Bulk orders, we like that.
We like bulk orders, indeed.
That's good. And I mean, you're doing amazing. This education, even you sitting here educating us like this, I know that I'm being blessed. When I get my goosebumps, Holy Spirit. So I know I'm being blessed, and I know people watching too are going to be blessed. So thank you for sharing and educating us. We need this. So thank you very much. Now I'm going to go to my 3 questions. So the first question is, if I could advise my younger self in one short sentence, I would say,
girl, thrive. Aim to thrive. Live and live well. Half the things you are crying about, they never actually materialize like you thought. Half the things you stressed about never came to pass. So work on thriving, accept yourself, love yourself, and thrive.
Right. Yeah, I love the answer. Thank you. I am fabulous because
I am fabulous because God created me for a specific purpose and equipped me to accomplish that purpose.
Mm.
And because of that, I know that I am fabulous. My light will shine.
It is shining. You're glowing. You're glowing.
Amen. Amen.
And then my final question. So usually I would ask about a book on business, but this one, let's ask about a book recommendation on mental health that someone can read, or it can also be an article, or any sort of resource that can be helpful.
Yeah. I think that a couple of books that have really helped me in my journey is one called The Gifts of Imperfection.
Mm.
And it's by an author called Brené Brown. I like it because so often that quest for perfection actually causes us so many moments of disquiet and discomfort and sadness. And what I learned from that book was to embrace wholehearted living and to carry a spirit of excellence. And when you understand that, just like, and her message is actually not different from yours. So often, because we don't believe in ourselves, then perfection is what we use to cover ourselves to make it seem like we are worthy.
Yeah.
But if you understand that you are already worthy and fabulous, then you can operate with the spirit of excellence. And if the result of something isn't what you thought, then you just say, hey, you know what? It didn't work out. I'm still fabulous. What can I do to approach this situation differently? And so that's what I love from that book. It's called The Gifts of Imperfection. Another book that really changed my life is called The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements by a guy called Don Miguel Ruiz. It's not a Christian book, but I think it was a bestseller even in Christian circles. And again, I guess the whole premise of the book is that as we are growing up and making sense of the world, as facts are presented to us, we agree with it. So if somebody says bottle, then you agree with it and receive it. Next time, if I see it, oh, okay, this is a bottle. All right, that means that this is a bottle. Yeah. All right. If somebody says glasses, I agree with it and I receive it. In an ideal world, right, we all the things we agree with are positive, but the world has not been ideal. And so many of us have agreed with notions that actually do not serve us well. Yeah. So, for example, in my counseling practice, there was once a woman I worked with who she'd had some broken relationships, and she didn't believe she was worthy. When we traced it back, it's because she didn't even know her father, and all she knew about her father was that he abandoned her mother before she was born. So, a simple changing the mindset, you are first class, you are not second class, you are deserving, you are worthy. She was able to break the agreement she had made, with the notion that I'm not worthy, I'm second class, And so in the book, he talks about four things that if you agree with, and let me tell you, it changed my life. It changed my life so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a small book, but it's amazing.
I'm going to add the links to those books as well. Thank you. And how do we find you for those who haven't read the fabulous book? Oh, I've moved mine to another shelf. I was going to say it's right there. How do we get copies? How do we find you so we can, learn more from you and access your services as well, please?
Yes, ma'am. So in Ghana, you can get Reflections of a Hope Monger through the online bookstore, booknook.com. It's also in, oh my goodness, I forget the name of the bookstore. But it's one of the bookstores in, I'm sorry,
Blue Knight.
In Accra. It's one of the bigger ones. There's Kingdom Bookstore. It's in Kingdom. It's a Kingdom bookstores. It's there. And also Boutique Ghana also carries it, another online bookstore. Right. The rest of the world, it's available on Amazon worldwide. In America, it's available on all the major bookstores on their websites. There's the ebook and also there's the hard copy. Yeah. You can find me at Cato Andah everywhere.
Everywhere. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lady Abba, for making time to speak with us and teach us all about mental health and how to take care of ourselves. We'll remember, we promise, we'll be good students. We promise we'll do the best we can to keep being healthy so we can fulfill what it is that God needs us to do as His children. Thank you. And please say hi to your fabulous family. And congratulations on your daughter. I mean, we were already celebrating all her different achievements, and now she's going off to uni. Congratulations to her too. And to you. Great job.
Thank you very much. And I want to say we are all in this together. We are all working for our spiritual health, for our mental health, and for our physical health. And if you find that, hey, you know what, I dropped the ball, don't condemn yourself. Tomorrow is a new day. Today is a new day. Start again. Pick up. It's about healthy habits.
Yeah.
You know, it's about healthy habits. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning habits. The minute you said it, I'm like, Amma, you need to add habits to. So, you know, the retreat I'm about to do, I'm like, you need to add habits to it.
Amen. Amen.
So much. And you have a fabulous day.
Thank you.
I just kept getting my goosebumps upon goosebumps. This is where I know the Holy Spirit is speaking to me through these words. And I hope you were blessed too. One of the things she said that really, really was a big takeaway for me. I took a lot, I took notes. And one of the things was about sharing. You know, when there's a burden, when you feel we are going through something, share and release it. You know, sometimes because of the fear of stigmatization and all, it's difficult to share, but let's listen to the words of professionals as they encourage us to share it with other people we trust, or professionals, so that we can get it out of here. You know, in Fanti we say, get it out of your book, you know, so that you can get the support that you need. Lady, gentleman watching me, I hope you've been blessed by this. Let me know in the comments. And if you have any further resources as well to share, I'll be happy to hear them. So until I come your way again, same time next week with Mind Your Business. It is ta.